What about second breakfast?
Time for second breakfast.
What's up, everybody? Monster from Breakdowns for Breakfast here with another installment of Second Breakfast. Welcome back. I believe this will be the first Second Breakfast since Breakdowns for Breakfast took our little hiatus and not recording for a little bit to spend some time with our families. But we are back. And if you listen to the first episode of the most recent season, you know we did an episode on mindless self indulgence. And needless to say, very fun episode. A little practical joke is what led us to that episode, which makes me very happy. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you probably already listened to that. Won't get into it. But during that episode, we addressed the fact that a lot of the lyrics in mindless self-indulgence music is a little offensive, to say the least. And Jimmy Urine, the vocalist, is a little bit of a term we used to use a lot was edgelord. I don't know if that's still the proper term, but the kind of guy that purposely swears and says offensive things just for the sake of being offensive. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it comes off a little bit like try hard. And during that episode, we were discussing that he ended up getting into some legal trouble. Now, I didn't want to go into a lot of detail on the episode because that was a 30-track album, and we were already trying to kind of hustle our way through it a little bit just so we didn't end up with a 2.5 hour long episode, which, hey, it's happened before. It's not that big of a deal. If people listen to it and enjoy it, great. But I don't think we needed 2.5 hours worth of mindless self-indulgence. It just doesn't seem like a good, healthy thing for your brain. But anyway, we brought up the fact that Jimmy Urine had gotten into some legal trouble. And so I did a little research into this years ago when it happened, but then also just because of doing research for the album, it came up again. And I thought maybe instead of, derailing us for 10, 15 minutes there, I could just do this right here for a couple minutes and kind of give you an idea of what happened, what the allegations were. And, it's up to you to decide if we talk about separating the art from the artist. Are these allegations something you can live with and continue to listen to this band? Is it too much and you believe it to be true to a point where you can't listen to this band anymore? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I'm just going to tell you what I've discovered and you can decide for yourself. So when I originally was looking up the information for his major lawsuit, I found another smaller incident that was very funny. Apparently in 1999, Jimmy Urine took out his penis on stage while performing with Mindless Self-Indulgence in Michigan, and he had to spend the night in jail for indecent exposure. In an interview in 2020, he said, "Of all the people on that tour, I get busted for whipping out my cock and lighting myself on fire. I spent the weekend in jail, actually. They didn't even give me a phone call, and I still had my whole pink outfit and dress on in jail. It was fun." So we kind of alluded to this in the episode, but Jimmy Urine live, very flamboyant, wears a lot of really wacky costumes. I mentioned they have a live video, a live DVD, and it's all on YouTube. You can watch some if you so choose. Is called Our Pain, Your Gain. And in that, he's wearing fairy wings. I think he's got on like fishnets. I mean, just wide open. He jumps all over the stage and goes nuts and says really crude things. In between every song, and also in every song because of the lyrics. But one of the things he does, and I think it's important to go ahead and bring this up, is he holds up a sign about kisses $1, and then he flips it over and it says VD for free. And after this, he literally jumps into the crowd and starts making out with people as they hand him money. Now, especially in 2026, I mean, that's never a good idea, period. Don't do that. But, like we talked about some of the lyrics in 1999, 2000, 2001, whatever. But by 2026 standards, it looks really bad. But yeah, there's no telling how old any of the people are in that crowd, okay? So I think you know where I'm going with this. So in the lyrics, in the oeuvre, the presentation of Mindless Self Indulgence, the P word gets thrown around a lot, mostly in a joking manner. There is you can look this up, whenever they were looking for a drummer, they had a ad out in one of the little papers or something, and it said you had to be comfortable being in a band with a bunch of P files. And it was probably a joke, but let's get into it. So in August of 2021, there was a lawsuit filed against, I'm going to just call him Jimmy because I don't want to say Uringer and I don't want to say Jimmy Urine. So let's just go with Jimmy. Filed against Jimmy in the New York Supreme Court with the charge of sexual battery of a minor. The accuser, who identified as Jane Doe because she was a minor, claimed that she had a sexual relationship with Jimmy from January 97 to June 99. The beginning of that relationship, she would have been 15 and Jimmy would have been 27. The lawsuit alleges that Jimmy had kind of manipulated her into believing that this was okay, this was okay behavior. There was times where, according to the lawsuit, it says that Jimmy would make her say and do things that made her seem even younger than how old she was. I'm not going to get into that. You can look that up if you want. But just things that like an even smaller child would say or do, that he was, supposedly into or something like that. And apparently he went on, again, these are allegations in this lawsuit, that he bought her a fake ID so she could get into clubs and they would go to shows together and he could buy her alcohol. And one of the things that I discovered that I thought was really kind of a little weird was around this time, and this is well documented as well, one of Jimmy Urine's friends is a guy by the name of James Gunn. Now, if that name sounds familiar, that's probably because you've seen some of his movies, like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, or Slither, or some of his other stuff. He's done, he got his start with Trauma, doing low-budget, gory, like horror films, and now he does Marvel and DC films. So, anyway, if you remember, I guess it was back in, hold on, I think I wrote it down. James Gunn kind of got in trouble around 2018 because of some tweets he put out, kind of resurfaced in like 2009 to 2012, where he was making crude jokes about P-files and that kind of thing. And obviously, I don't know if y'all remember this, but he got into some hot water there for a little while, but everybody kind of rallied behind him, and he's still in Hollywood being very successful now. During some time in the midst of all this, James Gunn actually had I don't know how to say this, had a party where the theme was P-files, like all the adults dressed like children. And it was really weird, really, really weird. And there are photos of James Gunn with Jimmy Urine at this party. And so, again, that sort of edgelord mentality, like you're purposely poking the bear, trying to be as, gross and offensive as you possibly can be. Now, as this lawsuit progressed, it got brought up that people at Elektra and Warner Music Group, who owned Elektra, knew about all of this. Managers, people close connected with the band, and they just chose to ignore it and just kind of sweep it under the rug and try not to draw attention to it. But, again, that who knows if that's true or not. To sort of add fuel to the flame, Mindless Self Indulgence thought it was a good idea to actually make t-shirts with the girl's face on it, the one that made these allegations. Again, that's not great, of course. Now, but here's the thing. The lawsuit against Elektra and Warner Music Group was dismissed in full on March 31st, 2023. And a lot of the people, the managers and the band members and anybody that was, I don't think the band members were ever brought to court or anything, but some of the other like people within the Mindless Self Indulgence circle, like managers and stuff like that, they were all dismissed from the lawsuit by April 26th of 2023. March 28th, 2024, all charges against Jimmy Urine were dismissed with prejudice. Now, I had to look this up. I didn't know what this meant, but when something is dismissed, it's done, it's gone. When it's dismissed with prejudice, not only is it done and gone, but it can never be brought back to court. So basically saying that it's all the way dismissed. Now, being dismissed in no way, shape, or form is some sort of a proof of innocence. I actually had to do jury duty. I didn't get selected, but I was there for 2 days and was part of some of the questioning and got to sit in on some of that. It was a real serious case. It was a manslaughter charge. And so they were being real thorough with the questions. And one of the things that they kept bringing up was, we're not here to, basically, just like in any court case, the defendant is innocent until proven guilty. And so he, in this case with Jimmy Urine, we are to presume he is innocent unless the prosecutors can bring up enough evidence to suggest that he is in fact guilty. And according to these court cases and everything else, that did not happen. They did not bring enough to solidify that Jimmy Urine was guilty of this behavior. Now, the problem is when you have built your career on saying the most vulgar, offensive things you can, consistently and often, and I didn't bring all these up, there are several examples of Jimmy Urine calling himself a pedophile, making jokes about being a pedophile. There is a song on, again, more damning evidence. The first album was called Tight, and the picture on the album looked to be a pair of like young person's panties. And there's even a song that they did called Panty Shot, which, again, I'm not going to get into the lyrics. You can look them up if you want to have a bad day. So all of this stuff, and then you get accused of that sort of behavior, it's really hard for you to have a leg to stand on. But if we took the lyrics of people like Frank Zappa, or like we mentioned before, Big Dumb Face, or hell, even like a Weird Al Yankovic, if you took those lyrics seriously, I mean, come on. There's all kinds of horrendous shit. When Gwar says the things that Gwar says, nobody goes, oh, I wonder if they really mean that. I really wonder if they intend to sever people's heads off and pee on the ashes of their burnt murder victims. Like, no, it's an act. I think Jimmy Urine's nonsense is mostly an act. But the problem is this is not something you joke about, especially not anymore. Like, it's never been okay, like, to joke about these types of things. But in the current culture that we live in now, when these, like I said, it just got dismissed in 2024. So this is all like just happened not that long ago. It's hard to come back from that. The fact that James Gunn was able to kind of get over the hump is kind of interesting because, I mean, again, separating the art from the artist. I'm okay. So here's how I'll wrap this up. I really like Mindless Self Indulgence. I said it on the show several times. I like a lot of their music. I like a lot of their albums. I get the tongue-in-cheek nature of the lyrics. Now, I don't think all of it's funny, and it doesn't all land for me, but I get what he's going for. And again, I don't know what he did. I'm sure there was some inappropriate behavior. Was it to the extent of what was brought up in the lawsuit? I don't know. But at the end of the day, he was found. It got dismissed. He did not get convicted. So I feel like I can listen to the music and separate, because the lyrics are so offensive sometimes and they are grotesque. It's sort of like it goes along with it. Like, and we're not going to get into this. We talked about doing a second breakfast on this, and I refuse. But it's not like the case of Ian Watkins from Lost Prophets. That's a whole other thing. That man is a demon. Like, that man was just an absolute plague on society. And so like, I can't listen to Lost Prophets anymore. I just can't. It doesn't. That is an example of me not being able to separate the art from the artist. In this case, I think I can, because the absurdity that is Mindless Self-Indulgence, it's just, it doesn't shock me that he would be accused of these things. Now, I will say all of that stuff got dismissed with prejudice, but no one has seen or heard from Jimmy Urine in years. And he was very busy with Mindless Self-Indulgence. He was busy with solo records, and now he's sort of fallen off the face of the earth. So maybe he comes back. Maybe Mindless Self-Indulgence is just kind of letting everything to quiet down, and then they're going to make some big comeback in 2028 or 2030 or something. Who knows? But I just figured, we alluded to it during our review of Frankenstein Girls Will Seem Strangely Sexy. And so I just wanted to kind of go into a little more detail on what he was accused of. Like I said, you can look all this up online. All the court documents are there. There's a couple of really good YouTube videos that discuss it in a little more detail. And you can see, some of the stuff I left out there. But that's the gist of it. How does this make you feel? When you listen, if you're a Mindless Self-Indulgence fan, can you still listen to the band knowing that he was accused of these things? Does it surprise you he was accused of these things, given his behavior and his lyrical content? And do you think maybe he was sort of judged unfairly based on his lyrics in some of these songs? I'm curious to know what you think. But hey, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you have a great day.